Hello, good evening, folks. As I say, I'd like to just bring you up to speed on Catherine and Joe, starting with Joe. Joe Gilbert, our 2026 Makar, Federation of Writers Scotland. Joe is a spoken word artist and writer from Aberdeen, writing in the native tongue of Doric or North East Scots and English. Joe's work has featured on BBC Radio 4's show Tongue and Talk, exhibitions, installations, and short films, as well as spray painted on a mural at Aberdeen Beach. That's impressive. Their poem Yon Hairy Stick, originally commissioned by Aberdeen Art Gallery, was included in the Scottish Poetry Library's Best Scots Poems 2022. Joe was a finalist at the Loud Poets Grand Slam at Edinburgh International Book Festival in August 23 and came fourth in the Scottish Slam Championships in 2024. Widely published in journals and anthologies, Joe's debut poetry collection, WTF is Normal Anyway, work it yourselves, I'm no swearing for once, was published in August 2022 by Seahorse Publications, which was nominated for a Scots Language Award in 2023. Past collaborations and commissions include the Stanza Poetry Festival, Aberdeen Art Galleries and Museums, Look Again Festival, the National Theatre of Scotland, and several projects with Aberdeen Performing Arts. Joe's poem Spiring was commissioned as one of the Scottish Poetry Library's Burns Night Skies features in 2025, and her second collection, The Department of Stuff and Things, is due to be published in March 2026 with Seahorse Publications. Joe's going to pop up some links in the chat. She's already put up a few gigs and events that she's got coming up, so look out for that in the chat as well. Awfully impressed. I've kept Joe a long time, and she's great to hear reading, and I'm just buzzing for what she's going to bring us this year. Moving on to our Scriever, Catherine Ogston. And some of you will have had the joy of hearing Catherine reading recently because she read for us in November at the I Write Festival. Catherine lives near Perth and writes the range of genres. Her short stories have been published by New Writing Scotland, Scottish Arts Trust, Leicester Writes, Fireworks, Postbox and others. Her flash fiction has been published by Bath Flash, The Fair, the National Flash Fiction Day events, Flash 500, which she won in 2023, Best Microfiction 25 and others. Longer work has been longlisted at the Caledonian Novel Awards, the Exeter Nobel Prize, Kelpie's Prize and others. She's been shortlisted twice for the Bridport Flash Award. She's recently completed an MLit in creative writing at Stirling University and is represented by, I can't read if it's A1 Guthrie or Al Guthrie at the North
Al
Library.
Guthrie.
Al Guthrie, thank you very much, Catherine. Catherine's really honoured to be the 2026 Scriever and is looking forward to supporting the work of the Federation. Welcome to you both. If I can start with you first, Joe, you've got a really strong voice, and I was saying right at the start, I've kennt you for years now, and I've been lucky enough to see you over the years at various events up and down the country. You've got a joyful, natural approach to your work, and I say this having been lucky enough, as I say, to have said you had you read on many occasions. I'm really interested in the variety of your successes, multiple publications, radio, been recognised and placed within national level opportunities for both the quality of your writing and your performance skills. Because loads of folk are good writers, but not good at standing up there and getting it larger on the slam stage. And I've done one Loud Poets Heat, and I was petrified. Well, Team Fokker with that all night, fingers on our mouth. So what I want to ask is, how do these varied individual and collaborative opportunities influence and support your work, sustain your enthusiasm and your creativity? Just go for it.
Wow, thank you very much for that introduction, and I'm very honoured to be alongside such a prestigious writer as Catherine as well. I'm like, ooh, it's really exciting. Oh my goodness, there was hunters in that question. I think I've just been really lucky. Like, I've been really kind of lucky. So, you know, I'll kind of maybe talk about how I got into writing and poetry and stuff later on. But the main reason that I think that, you know, I've had the opportunity to do a lot of varied stuff is that I've just said aye to everything. Everything that I've been invited to go and do, I've just said aye, well, most within reason. You know, and I think, like, because I don't want to get pigeonholed and because I'm quite late to this, you know, it's not like I started writing when I was a teenager. Well, I did, but I would have never showed anybody anything that I wrote when I was a teenager. And also, thank goodness, in hindsight, that I never, because that would have been bad. but I never want to get pigeonholed. And so I was like a sponge when I started doing this stuff, and I was just like hoovering up information because I felt like I was so behind everybody else. And so I was like, right, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to do some of this. Maybe like, you know, a neurodivergence, it's got something to do with it as well, because I'm always working on multiple things. Like I had the opportunity to kind of sit down with a kind of almost like a creative counselor through a funding opportunity that I got, and they kind of helped me to maybe slow down a little bit and just focus on two or three things. Like for me, my process is I've got ideas coming out, in my brain all the time, like a mushroom, but having the discipline to sit down and finish those things into a finished piece, that's the part that I really struggle with, is having that discipline, because I'm just like, no, I want to do this. I'm like, oh, shiny thing, new, I'll go and do that, And so I suppose that's a lot of the reason as well that I've kind of dotted it about and done a bit of this and a bit of that and a bit of everything, is because I get bored really easily. And I always want to keep my own practice like new and fresh and exciting, and because it's my thing. I kind of was at a time in my life when poetry came to me, and it was like I needed something that was just mine, that wasn't anything to do with my family, or wasn't anything to do with my pals, or any of the other kind of avenues in life. And it was something that was just mine, and I also want to kind of keep it fun and playful, otherwise fits the point. I never kind of got into that practice of writing with a reader in mind. Like that terrifies me. Absolutely terrifies me. And was the reason I never wrote for so long as well, because like people are just going to think that's rubbish. What have you got to say? You can't do this and blah blah blah. So I would never sit and write any piece thinking about who was going to read it. That just would kill my creativity right off the bat. So I just don't do that. I don't entertain those terrifying thoughts. I just write and see what happens, kind of thing. And then once you get it down on the page, you can go and play with it and think about maybe some technical things or forms or whatever. But yeah, did that answer all of that question? I don't know, because I forgot what the question is.
So you're saying there that your brain goes off at hard tangents at once, and I've got neurodiverse sons. I was doing gaming at uni, so I ken what you mean. He's much cleverer than I am. But in terms of your inspiration, where does that come from? Ideas is brilliant, creativity is brilliant, but where do you get your inspiration? And what about these collaborations with other types of work?
Tons. So music is my other big love. Like I'm totally obsessed about music. I go to gigs all the time. Like I've got a list of bands that I've seen, which is clocking like nearly 300 now. Like I am literally obsessed with it. I also like art. I don't know anything about art. I'm not educated. Like I don't have an educated arts background, but I know what I like, and I find it very inspiring, and I like being surrounded by different kinds of art and going to see like basically all the weird things that nobody else likes. That's what I'm gonna go and see. Like all the weird stuff, like people like doing I don't know, like a dance that's made up of hugs, or puppetry, or really odd things, I just find super interesting. But then I also like really observational stuff as well. Like one of my poems from a few years back that's in my collection was inspired by this kind of human ballet that I saw happening in McDonald's. And there was this wee kid and his dad, and he was very, very like serious for his age. I mean, he was only about maybe 4 or 5, maybe even younger. And his dad was kind of coaching him and saying, it's over here. And he was carrying his wee tray with his rubbish over, and he gently tipped it into the thing. And his dad patted him on the shoulder and was like, that's really good, son. And then just as he was doing that, there was this screaming coming from the stairs. Which was another kid and this poor woman who was like dragging the child like a monkey, and he's screaming, "I wanted ice cream!" And it was just such a contrast And like I was sulking because I had to sit in McDonald's because I was skin. I don't like McDonald's. I know I look like I do, but I really dinna because it's nae actual food and it's nae fine. But I was pure skin, and that was the cheapest place to go until I had to sit, and it was raining and cold outside. So I'm feeling pure miserable, pure sorry for myself. Oh my god, I've got to go McDonald's like I'm some kind of middle class person, which I'm nae. And then there's this beautiful human ballet transpires, and I love things like that. So straight away I was like, right, I need to get my notebook out, write that down. So be warned, if you see me in a coffee shop or anywhere in public, I will write down what you say and make it into poetry. So yeah, I mean, like, I just and other poets obviously as well, particularly Scots language poets, because it was something that I didn't know existed. You know, I didn't know that existed. I didn't know that I was allowed to write the way that I spoke. Um, you know, when I was doing my studies in college and stuff like that. I mean, this is a long, many moons ago now. And one of the assignments in one of my classes was that we had to write a newspaper column. And Robbie Shepherd, you know, was really kind of famous for writing the Doric column in a P&J up here. And he wrote this weekly column and he wrote it in Doric. And I thought, oh, I could do that. And it ended up going up to like the high Hegian echelons of the flipping top of that department. And the only reason they let me do it was because the teacher was a fluent Doric speaker. Otherwise, they would have said no. And I just thought, well, you know, if they haven't holding that much carry on about a flipping made up newspaper column, then, you know, yeah, these were the kind of, I suppose, resistance that I was met with until I went and did my master's. And my wonderful tutor there introduced me to a whole load of people like Sheena Blackhall and Tom Leonard and, you know, Billy Letford and all of these wonderful kind of writers that write in Liz Lochhead that wrote how they speak. And I was like, what? I felt robbed. I was like, what? You can actually write the way you talk. I mean, obviously I've got my posh voice on because I didn't want to go full pelt Doric for some of the southerners that might be on Zoom just now or folk watching later on. But yeah, that kind of really, really inspired me, and basically turned a tap on in my head that, thank goodness, hasn't been switched off yet. So
I've got to be honest, mate, I didn't see it getting switched off. Um, I'm just inspired by you. And well, I'm no posh, I've got the Falkirk accent. And I go places, oh, you're that wee pop for Falkirk then. Oh, yeah, that's me. Go back at my shell quite quickly. But no, it's wonderful when you see and hear folk. And one of the things I remember was seeing Liz Lochhead in the vet place in Edinburgh. It's the theatre space that we used to be a lecture theatre for the vets at the Dickey. And she started something and she stopped and went, oh, wait the new, and she restarted it. And I'd only been writing for 2 years, and I thought, well, she can say wait the new and restart it. So can any of the rest of us. You know, that was a real life lesson that day. So Jo, your inspiration's huge, obviously, widely ranging, and I'm taking offence at this comment about your dodgy taste in music because you now like some of the same bands. I'm going to see Biffy next week. It was supposed to be in Aberdeen, as you can, but we had to change the venue. So I would like to ask you, your first collection, WTF is normal anyway, is out with Seahorse. I was at one of the launch events. I've got it. It's magic. Can't wait for your second coming out. I'll certainly try and get myself through to Avant-Garde for that night. It's beginning of March, isn't it, sometime?
It is, the third. Tuesday the 3rd.
I'm glad my head was the 3rd. So having completed your soon-to-be published second collection, I've got another question for you.
Sure.
What advice do you have for our members that are facing that daunting look at your work when you get that first opportunity to either put together a collection or you decide to put a submission in that requires you maybe sending 6, 8, 10 pieces of work? How do you go about that kind of thing? Especially when you've got a brain that's so busy.
With great difficulty is my first answer. I think so. I had 2 previous collections that I kind of put together. One was basically my dissertation for uni. So I came out with my master's Argalis thinking, hey, I'm brainy now, I need to get published. And I got a very, fair but honest kind of feedback from somebody, which I really appreciated. Like, you know, some of them just dingy you and they don't even reply, which I just think is really bad. Sorry, I'm trying to swear. I do swear like a sailor. Um, but yeah, I just think like they just have to say no. How long does it take you to send an email? You know what I mean? And like, but I really appreciated the honest kind of feedback, and they had said it's not quite up to the standard that we're used to, but in a couple of years, give us a shout. We would love to hear from you. So I really appreciated that. Um, and I think both of those collections never got published. I had single poems published from them, once I kind of polished them up and tweaked them a little bit. But that gave me the kind of experience of what it was like trying to put a collection of poems together. And then I often, because I have this swirly like word cloud thing going on in my head all the time, like I'm writing stuff down in a notebook. I write most things by hand first. It's very, very rare that I'll just go straight on a computer to write anything. I write everything by hand first, but sometimes you kind of get a notebook, and so I text myself things. I put it in emails, like depending on where you are, and like I've got this big long WhatsApp thread to myself of all these lines and things that come up, and I've always got these ideas swirling, and sometimes I'll just leave them swirling and I don't, but I get titles and things and ideas. And so kind of like after that second collection, I'd been kind of seriously putting it out to publishers and I wasn't getting anything back. And then I thought, right, I'm going to do something else. Like I'd said, I'd had kind of single poems and stuff. And what I did for this one, the one that did get picked up, um, was that I had 8 little vignettes. So there's, I'm going to say swear, it's what the fuck is normal anyway. But obviously my publisher were like, you need WTF. Um, you kind of hate that on the title page. But so there was like 8 little small vignette poems. And then the rest of the collection fitted in around that. So there were poems that I wrote specifically once I kind of had that framework. And then there were others that just fitted into the narrative of that particular thing. Um, and when I sat down with the whole manuscript, that wasn't the finished thing. So I had maybe 3 or 4 versions of it. But one of the pieces of advice that I got was to lay all the poems out. So lay all the poems out, and you can kind of group which ones sort of fit together. And I don't know what it is. Like for me, I don't think with that academic head on, like, oh, this is a sonnet and this is a villanelle and this is a blah blah blah, or this is just for you. I don't. That's not how my brain works. For me, it was a vibe, and it was completely obvious. Like the ones that didn't belong there really stuck out like a sore thumb. And then I would kind of read through the whole manuscript, like up to spoken word. I mean, like another piece of advice I got when I was at uni is read your poems out loud, even if you're not a spoken word person and you're not into performance poetry, because how you read it in your head is different from how you read it out loud. And so if there's words that are not quite working or you're tripping over your own tongue, you need to kind of tweak it a little bit because it's not flowing. So all these kind of little tricks and things. But yeah, it became quite obvious. I mean, there was ones that I really wanted to put in it, and I just knew straight away. I'm like, that doesn't belong in there. I was like, grieve for it for a little bit. My poor poem doesn't belong in there. But yeah, so that's kind of what I did for the first one. This kind of the newest one that's coming out is it next month? No, not yet, because it's only January. In March. I had the title flying around in my head for ages, and I got the opportunity to go on a retreat where I didn't have funding for it. I self-funded, so I didn't have to make anything. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to write a funding application about what I was going to write before I wrote it. So I just went in there and played and had fun. And so I could discuss, look, I'm thinking about this, blah, blah, blah. And when I said the title, the person that I was talking to burst out laughing. I was like, right, okay, yes, that's the reaction. But yes, that is the title. Because I'd called it a working title before that. But it was definitely that ended up being the title and not just the working title. So yeah, it was completely different. And I kind of, although I did have sections, I like a sectional thing. that were kind of themes. It wasn't as quite as rigid as that kind of writing in around the other poems. So yeah, it's been a totally different process. It's also been a nightmare because it's my second collection, and my pal Judy Taylor calls it difficult second album syndrome, where I just went through this phase of hating every single thing that I'd written, and I just lost the ability to be objective about my own work, and that really kind of stunted my creativity. But I think sometimes if you write a whole collection, you pour everything you've got into it. And so you've like, I think of yourself as, a creative well, and you're filling yourself up with art and music and gigs and other poems and stuff you see and, your own experiences. And so if you pour all of that into a collection, you've got to give yourself time to like fill back up again, and sometimes it's all right not to write. And so I did that. I just thought, right, I'm going to shove this in a drawer, not look at it for a good while, and then come back to it. And then when I came back to it, there was things that were really obvious jumping out at me, and then that kind of creative flow started again, which was nice because it means that my creative life wasn't over and I hadn't completely dried up. All this nonsense that my inner saboteur was telling me, that's it, you've had it, you've only got one book in you, look at you. That wasn't true. So I'm very glad of that.
I think that's an absolute masterclass in how to get going, mate. It absolutely is fantastic. Joe, I'd like to ask you to read for us now. Bearing in mind we're being recorded, you might choose not to read from your new collection. It's up to yourself. You could get it off your publisher. It's nothing to do with me because we'll be putting this out. So it's up to yourselves to what you choose to read tonight. And then I'm going to bring Catherine into discussion around creativity and stuff as well. So, Joe, let's hear your words. The sound magic.
Okay, so I'm going to read 3 poems for this set, and one of them, the first one I'm going to read, was actually one of the first poems I had published in print, and it was in one of the Fed anthologies. And I was greeting and feeling sorry for myself because I'd only had poems published online, and that wasn't really being published, was it? And so then I ended up getting an email from whoever was running the anthology saying that I had 2 poems and a piece of flash fiction in it as well. So I was really chuffed, and that put paid to my sulking. No, I have never been published. So this is called Dart. In childhood pubs, my father loved pints and darts and 40 fags a day. Back when Jockey Wilson and Eric Bristow were role models for loons. Brither never missed his scran. Aruna frantic worry for Abdi, cheers barman. The school bully had chucked him in a skip and sat on top, and fear locked him in for hours mair. I dealt out retribution with young fists, in front to a' my neighbours, for shouted, "Gang on, get him!" At youth club on Friday, he was made out of feel. Battered by a quine, ha ha. His peer bruised ego through the dart. Bullseye, my ankle, the red dot. As the staff rushed in, the smarmy git smirked, like Bristow when he played the winning shot. So, also inspired by true events. And this one is kind of more of a performancey one. It's from What the Fuck is Normal, and it's kind of ode to my brain, and it's called The Incredible Thinking Person. The incredible thinking person is super skilled at blowing up thoughts and feelings to ridiculous proportions, to the point where there's a danger their head may actually burst. Thought follows thought after thought, eating those thoughts and fucking every thought in the skull breeds more thoughts, ties insecurities to childhood memories and what that 20 years ago, knots them tight, makes them true until the mind is a scrambled ball of wool clawed by an evil kitten into a pile of goo. Boom! Brain Mars splatters over shocked strangers, faces frozen and wide, ohs, unable to believe what they've seen. The incredible thinking person has finally kaput, packed in, overloaded, spurted their mountains made from molehills over the general population. Trillions of thoughts flop like goldfish, twitching, mouths open, close, open, gasping to be fed. Okay. And this is the last one. So this is actually in the collection, but it's an old poem that I've kind of retweaked a little bit. It's called On Being a Bridesmaid. In the church, puffed out red velvet cupcake tottering in 5 inches of what feels like a million tiny blades stabbing toes. Full beam smile girds jelly legs as the last hymn drifts. Bride swans the aisle serene in her dream day. Behind, lurch, newborn foal totter, magpie the partner hiss, "Pass the trainers!" Sneaky slink to the toilet, peel evil heels off poker hot hooves, terracotta tiles bestow ice kisses. Tootsies glissade into cool cushions surely crafted from frosted angel wings. Steady stance, reception ready, and give silent thanks for Converse trainers and the one redeeming feature of the frock. So long, it hides my feet.
Oh, that is magic, mate. I think just about every woman in this call kens that feeling. Absolutely brilliant. Catherine, I'd like to bring you into conversation now, and really the similar manner. You and I have had a good weather this week relating to your writing journey and how it started out, and then getting a bit of help and support and finding places to actually go to. And that's the whole reason I joined the Fed, was I was trying to find places to find out about things, and that's like 2016. So I was aha as soon as I read that about you. I'm interested to hear about the variety in your work, because you work across very, very successfully, has to be said, across very different disciplines. You've got flash fiction, young adult work, and short form. You've been developing novels. You've spoken about having a number of novels in your head at one point in time, and then you've honed that over time with courses and advice, etc., etc. So what I'd like to ask you to pick up on, and then I'm going to leave you and Joe just to rattle on again, as to how we bring things together, is about the support you've had. And I used the word bravery in our sort of conversation chat earlier, and it is absolute bravery in submitting something that you believed in before you'd actually got to the point it was totally finished. I found that amazing. And in the back of what Joe was saying about publication and stuff. So please just go for it. I'm not going to interrupt you, I promise. Catherine Ogston, folks.
Thank you, Janet. So yeah, like Joe, I have always written a bit and never showed bits and pieces, although I think when my children were very small, I did send a couple of stories to Women's Weekly, which I don't think they wanted them, but I didn't actually know what else to do with them. I think the growth of the wealth of information on the internet has really expanded our understanding of where to send things, and literary magazines, for example. I did start writing with more sort of reader engagement on an online fiction forum. And that was really positive, because when you get that feedback from readers, and also people start blogging, if you did well, if you were kind of being successful, people would start blogging about your story, which was a real thrill. And then moving on from that, I joined my local writing group. And I think that's really one of the most positive things. If you're looking for that interaction with others in a sort of local setting, it's such a positive thing to do. So I've been a member of my local writing group, Perthshire Writers, for about 14 years now. And it's really encouraged me to try different genres. So my first love was always short stories. And I hadn't really heard of flash fiction very much until I started, for example, going to the, because I was a member of Perthshire Writers, that group is affiliated to the Scottish Association of Writers. So I started going to their conference, which is held in March every year. And so that's really, I think, when I first heard of flash fiction. But I really thought that flash fiction, you could just take a section of a longer story and make it, chop a bit off the top and chop a bit off the bottom, and you would have a piece of flash. And really, that's not what flash fiction is at all. It's really a distinct form in its own right. And I would say that the pandemic had a massive impact on me in that all of a sudden everyone was doing Zoom workshops, and you could sign up for the most amazing workshops and courses. And some of them were free, some of them were just given away. Like a number of times I've been lucky enough, someone has said, well, I've paid for this course and actually I can't do it. I'd like to gift it to someone, So that was back in the day when Twitter was a really useful resource. A lot of writers have left Twitter now because of, well, it's not even called Twitter now, is it? It's called X. So a lot of people have jumped ship onto things like Blue Sky and even Instagram. But Twitter was back in the day, going back 5 years, it was a massive resource. And it was also a great way to find out about competitions, mentoring opportunities. So another opportunity I had was I was picked as a summer mentor with Write Mentor, which was actually founded by a Glasgow teacher. And it's nationwide now. In fact, they have engagement from probably all around the world. But it was started by Stuart, who I believe is a Glasgow teacher. So I got a mentorship over the summer of the pandemic with an American writer called Jodie, and she really helped me. I had finished my young adult manuscript at that point after Joan Lennon, who was one of my tutors at Moniac Moor in 2018. She realised that I was forever starting novels, getting like 7,000 or 10,000. I even have a sort of 26,000 word novel that I just got that far and then just stopped writing. So she kind of said to me in one of our mentoring sessions at Moniac Moor, she says, I can see what you're doing and you need to actually pick a project and finish it. And she even made me drop a writing schedule, which I didn't follow. But in 2019, I did actually make myself, and sometimes it was literally 250 words a day. So if you chunk it down to that small an amount, it becomes more manageable. Because obviously I was working full time, 2 relatively young children. So it was very much, and sometimes writing is a bit like giving yourself homework, because you've done a full day at your actual job, and that you've done, you've cooked a dinner, you've done the children's homework, you've hung up the washing, you've fed the cat, whatever. And the last thing you really want to do sometimes is turn on the computer and make yourself write, 250 to 500 words. But I guess it's that thing of, if you start, the motivation actually catches up with you. So I got there, I got to 42,000 words. And then, like I told Janet, I submitted that manuscript. After Jodie, like I say, the mentor, had really helped me sort of, no, actually, that's the wrong way round. I submitted it to, I got 42,000 words done, submitted it to the Caledonian Novel Award. I don't know if I ever told the people at Caledonian that I did this. But I got, when I read the tweet that I'd been longlisted, I suddenly then thought, I've got 6 days to send in my manuscript, because the email said, right, you've been longlisted, please now send us the complete thing. I think you had to send 10,000 words in the first instance. So you've got 6 days to send in a completed manuscript. And I thought, I think I'd said in my synopsis that it was 50,000, which is a short novel, but they didn't seem to mind. So I did it. I got the rest of that novel completed within a week and sent in. And really, I've said to people, getting that, like, you absolutely have to do this because you've got this far. You can't drop the ball now. It was one of those moments where I thought, you just have to write that extra bit and get it done. But of course, I'd reached that sort of really scary chapter where I thought, I don't have the skills to pull this off. This is a critical moment in the novel. I I can't do it. So that's why it had been stuck at that point. So getting that email made me think, right, all of that has to get, all those feelings, all that doubt, all that lack of confidence, that has to go to one side for the moment. And I just have to put my head down and get it done, get it out to 50,000 words. So that's what happened. It didn't reach the last 5 or 6, but it did win the best manuscript in Scotland. So that was nice. And then the Right Mentor mentoring, that was with Jodie the following summer, and you had to have a completed manuscript for that. So I did. I had that completed manuscript, and that helped really kind of reshape it. And she was the person that said, like, the really hard questions, like, what's the thematic questions in your novel? And and it was like, I don't know. I really had to sort of think, well, what are the themes? What is actually going on in this novel? So that was tricky, but so useful, because if you can't talk about your novel and know exactly what it's about, then you're going wrong somewhere. So it went to an agent showcase. All the mentees who were able to, complete that program submitted a section, not the whole thing, section and a synopsis, and I got 6 notes of interest. So of course that was amazing, but also it doesn't mean anything, unfortunately, because those 6 notes of interest didn't come to anything. Some of them wanted a partial, some of them wanted a full. All of them in the end turned it down, and it kind of went in the bottom drawer. And that's where things like flash fiction and short stories come back into play, because it's much less daunting and intimidating to write a 300-word flash fiction sometimes than to think, right, I'm going to start a new 75,000-word novel. So yeah, and the ice window came back into play when I least expected it, because I had a one-to-one with Al, and I was trying to pitch him an adult novel I'd been writing, which had just come second in the Extra Novel Prize, which was announced although they call it the 2020 prize, it was announced in May 2021. And he unfortunately wasn't interested at all in this novel that I thought he would love to hear about. But he did say to me, "What else have you written?" And I told him about the ice window, and it does have a kind of unusual setting in that it's set in Antarctica. And he suddenly got very interested, and he said, "Well, why hasn't it sold?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, because it's done fairly well. It's it had placed in a very early draft, in fact, had also placed in the Exeter, done well in the Caledonia. It had also been longlisted at Dyslexia Novel Prize for Children and Young Adult Fiction." So he said, "I'll read." No, in fact, he said, "Write me a 10-page synopsis." And I thought, that I don't want to do that, but I will do it. Luckily, he actually came and said to me, because we were at this conference, so he came and found me the next day, and he said, "Actually, just send me the whole thing and I'll read it." So to cut a long story short, on the back of that, that's where I got signed with Al. And it has been out to publishers. It got really good feedback, but not enough to cross the line, unfortunately. But I'm really hoping that one day I'll be able to get it over the line, as it were. So yeah, that's been my kind of one of my biggest projects. But like I said to Janet, there's about, I can't even count. I would probably scare myself if I had to count how many unfinished novels are sitting on my computer. So yes, sometimes flash fiction and short stories feels like much lower stakes, but I do love them as a form, and I don't want to come across as saying that somehow writing flash fiction and short stories is easier. It's easier in that it takes less time, but I think there's a huge amount of craft involved, and I think there's a huge amount of mistakes you can make if you can do, well, it's just as any writer can do. So yeah, I always want to promote the craft of flash fiction and short stories, because I think a dynamic short story, an engaging short story, and an engaging flash are just so interesting and inspiring to read.
Yeah, I have to say, one of my notes I've got, Catherine, is that the first time I met you was at I Write in November when you came through for us, and you were reading with Postbox that night as well. Um, the I Write Festival was fantastic. We had a great day. We were in a massive room in the Mitchell Library, and you got up at the lectern and started to read, and the place just went silent. And you absolutely had us there in the moment. Oh, what's happening to these characters? What happens next? Yay! Sort of cheering in my head as I was doing 20 other things at once. And it's just fabulous that you pulled us in at that ability to connect with folk so immediately with your readers, because your subject matter was nothing that is universal and that folk can always, cotton on at what you're talking about. But at the same time, there's enough specificity in it that actually go, oh, what happens next, and who says that, and what says this, and it's a real eye. And I think that's maybe why you have got half a dozen novels sitting there, is because it's just this thing of how you get all these words down a page, and it's mapping almost. It's almost like you're sort of working your way up to that next point where there will be that arc of creativity that comes out, and where's the twist point, and where's the this, and where's the that. So no, I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with next, and I'm wishing you every success with getting that first young adult novel published, because you've written, it sounds like a really interesting book, and a book that's based in a part of the world or a story that's set somewhere that we really don't hear that much about. There's a lot of things that are very much the same out there, shall we say, so it'd be good to get something different. So any publishers, anybody kind of any publishers, put them on to help for Catherine. So that's fantastic. Catherine, could I ask you, would you like to read a wee bit for us now, please?
Yeah, so I've got well, technically it is flash because it's under 1,000 words, but it's more lengthy than the usual flash I write. This is called a look back, and I actually wrote it for something that happens in Stirling called the George Buchanan Prize. So it came joint second last year. I had to write about Stirling, and the theme was memory, so Stirling and memory. And I did actually take my children on a sort of little holiday to visit Stirling Castle and Wallace Monument, etc. Well, probably a long time ago now, probably about 10, 12 years ago now. But this is what came to mind. This is one of your favourite photographs. Your son at Stirling Castle on a spring day 10 years ago. He's standing on cobblestones, each one shining with a small fractal of sunlight, and the dark curve of a tunnel frames the top of the picture. He's posing for the camera, but you can't see his features because the bright sun has made him a silhouette, his limbs splayed like he is dancing. The shape of him says something about happiness, being young, being unburdened. He doesn't know his love of books is about to come to an end. No one knows yet about the dyslexia which will make words hard to order and impossible to spell. Neither of you can predict that although he used the word impasse in perfect context at the age of 10, he will be a school leaver before he turns 17. On this same trip, you boarded the small boat for Inchmahome and sailed across the calm waters of Scotland's only lake. Your son explored the priory ruins and ran along the woodland paths lined with nodding bluebells. The guide told you to look for the hidden faces carved into the ancient walls, and when you couldn't find them, you asked her to point them out, because leaving without seeing them somehow felt like bad luck. Sailing away from the island, you watched your son scanning the landscape for ospreys. He doesn't know about the pandemic that will arrive, cutting him off from everything. No one knows yet that one day he will be marooned in his bedroom with his education drifting away from him. Neither of you can predict that even after the virus has abated, he will make a nest of his bedroom, living there for a year or more, unsure of how to find his way out. You climbed the stone tower of the Wallace Monument, the winding steps carrying you higher and higher into the cool air. You stood at the top, letting your eyes take in the miles and miles of land beneath you. Your son stared down at the ground and you took deep breaths, knowing that he was perfectly safe. You thought about John Damien de Falcus, who believed not only in alchemy, but that he could fly to France. In 1507, he fashioned wings from bird feathers and jumped from the castle walls, landing in a dunghill and breaking a leg. You think about him looking over the edge at the impossibly faraway ground, and about his steps off the parapet, launching himself into nothingness. You tell your son this story and see on his face how he understands the magic of it, the notion of taking flight and soaring through thermals and clouds. He doesn't know that he will show no interest in college courses or apprenticeships or filling out applications. No one knows yet that the one part-time job he will get will end in disaster, and he will be too embarrassed to tell you until months later. Neither of you can predict that you will live in the same house, avoiding talk about his future plans, as if wobbling on a precipice, the fall beneath too far and steep. At the campsite, there was a cycle track with ramps and dips and bumps, and your son borrowed a bike and a helmet and spent hours there. He wanted speed. He wanted to feel the motion of rising and falling and the trees blurring as he pedalled furiously. You watched him do circuits over and over again, his face concentrating on the turns and rises. Your son knew how to find his way. He doesn't know that one day, despite everything, he will find a job where he will excel. No one knows yet that he will work outdoors with children who seek momentum and thrill and adventure, and that they will chant his name as they board their coach and wave goodbye. Neither of you can predict that, like John Damien DeFalcus, you will discover that falling is sometimes just part of the journey.
Wow, we're all clapping. That is absolutely fantastic. And yeah, there's a lot in that I get, and I can truly relate to it. And again, that's the magic of one other time I've heard you reading. That is just fabulous. Thank you so much. So you were talking about how you write for young adults, and Jo, I know you've done work in schools and things with children as well. So can I ask the two of you one more kind of question that's related to that sort of way of what that means to you, and how maybe you do things that wee bit differently, or you feel that aha moment that you've got it when someone works for kids, whether you're writing about them or working with them, because I think that's an area that they're all in these now. We need to get them off the devices and writing and interested in creativity. So ladies, go for it, the two of you. I'll shut up. And we're going to run slightly over, folks, after 8 o'clock. I hope nobody's got their wine glass cooling. It'll be too cold.
Don't know, do you
Catherine and Jo, just go for it.
I mean, I do work with children, but they're the primary level. So, and some of them are very, very talented, I have to say, but I'm not sure there's a lot of link between my skills as a writer and, although maybe that's not true, I don't know, it's hard to say, but I certainly do. One thing we do as teachers is modelling. We model pieces of writing, and I think some of my colleagues perhaps, it's always a joy for me to be able to just bring up a Word document and start typing out something and getting the children engaged in it. So that's part of my job, and I'm actually taking part in the National Improvement in Writing programme just now, which has been interesting. And the previous programme we used was something called Big Write. I don't know if anyone else is in education, they might recognise those names of things. But yes, there's certainly a lot of gaming going on at home, and I'm as guilty as anyone. Sometimes social media, I'll find myself on my phone late at night when really I could be reading a novel. It's everywhere, and I think sometimes we do have to be disciplined and remind ourselves that not to be so passive and just get that indulge in all that scrolling. That's really not that healthy for us.
Jo, can I bring you in there? Because the two of you have spoke about being creative and then working out ways of doing things, and that word discipline's there again. So what kind of thing would you say relating to that? Because I know you've worked with a lot of young people as well, and it's just inspiring to hear how you work with different age groups and stuff, and you can bring some of that insight to us at the Fed this year. It'd be great fun.
I mean, I've worked with like mostly older, like young people. The teenies, I just go in and here carry on, and we had like live rap battle poems, making imaginary animals and shouting in Doric, which some of the teachers kind of come through and have a look and like what's going on through there. Um, but I prefer working with older kids. Well, I shouldn't call them kids. It's not very politically correct. But just because there's so many preconceived ideas about what poetry is or what poetry isn't, and I kind of came in at a different level, and I think sometimes if you're reading poems, it's made up of symbols, and like the Poetry Foundation or whatever, no kid is going to engage with that. It's just going to reinforce that idea that it's not for them, and it doesn't include them because you're not talking about their world. So what I love doing is taking in poems or pieces of writing that would totally turn their idea of what they think poetry is on its head. Like one of my favorites is there's 27 haiku for Biggie Smalls, and it's fantastic. And so they're like, what, she's talking about rappers, and what I mean, like there's just totally unexpected. And so like I go in there with the idea that if I can change one person's perception of what poetry is, then that's my job done. And also that kind of trying to encourage that self-belief that yeah, they can write the way that they speak, they don't have to hide it, and there are all these different kinds of poetry that they can kind of get into, and so yeah, that's what I love doing, is encouraging that, providing a gateway into poetry that I never had, I suppose. You could look at it that way. Yeah,
That's really interesting, because the two you're talking about, and Catherine went, oh, maybe it is, but that thing of what you do for yourselves, it computes across generations. I'm an old geezer and all, and if I was to start talking about the latest rap band, my sons would laugh at me. But if I talk about the Beatles, then they get it, but it's just that thought of how inspiration carries both out to those that you're trying to connect with, but then you're getting so much back for that as well. It's just, I guess that's why we all write. Yeah, everybody likes the thought of their writing, connecting with somebody and it being read, but it's a two-way thing, and you're getting it back too. Could I ask if I can bring up one or two questions, and then we'll finish up with a couple of minutes reading for both of you. So that might mean, Catherine, you've got to pick a wee extract or something, but we'll run slightly 5 minutes there. But I've got one question at the minute.
sure.
Which is from Bridget, and it's, what's your advice for finessing your writing, and when would you have the courage to submit or bury it and accept it's shite? I bet you it isn't, so I'm going to say that for you. So ladies, what's your answer to that?
I think it's really, really useful to remember that writing's so subjective, and certainly I've taken a lot of comfort, when you've had a rejection, from realizing when you see other people, maybe going back to Twitter again, people would tweet and say, well, they might have won a huge competition, and they would say, well, actually, I've been dragging this short story round behind me for like years and nobody wanted it. And then, then it would win a big competition. So there's a lot to be said for persistence. I think a lot of writing success is just being persistent. And I think your first question was about finessing your work. I think editing, developing that editing eye, and also finding your people, getting that group around you that can read your work and go, don't think this bit's quite right. Not your husband, not your wife. They're not going to give you the advice that you maybe really, really need. You want the people that are slightly removed from your immediate loved ones, because your friends and family maybe don't want to hurt your feelings. So you need to find your people that are willing to read your work and go, I think this may be, for example, this starts too far away from the action, or this ending doesn't quite work. And you do the same for them, so it's reciprocal. I think that's a really good strategy to have for. And as for submitting your work, just going back to just being persistent and thinking, if you submit something and you don't get anywhere, you've not really lost anything.
That's a really, really good way of looking at it. Joe, you got any wee quick words of advice before we get you to the poem? And that gives Catherine a chance to have a look for a few minutes extra just to tie us off.
Sure. I mean, echoing a lot of what Catherine says, I think, for poetry, there's all these kind of, journals and magazines, and it's really confusing to start off with because you don't know. Just keep putting it out there. Is it like, I went on a course with John McCulloch, and he said he can paper his house. Never mind a room, he could paper his house with the amount of rejections he had. But you just keep putting stuff out there, and I keep everything I write. I've never chucked anything and said, oh, that's rubbish. And sometimes, if I'm kind of like lacking inspiration, but it doesn't happen a lot, thank God, but sometimes I'll just go and have a wee trawl through all my things and pick out, oh, I like this phrase or I like this word. So it's maybe like a whole poem that'll never come anything, but there's a line or an idea or a phrase that I've taken out of it, and you can go and cherry pick. And sometimes I like to do that just to mix things up a bit. And then I'd submit it. I mean, I haven't been published by any of the big guns either. I still don't have a poem in Gutter, which I'm like, sure. I need to have a look, but they keep rejecting my work. So yeah, but I don't take it personally. I know if I'm like putting an anthology together and putting my own collection together, sometimes your rejection isn't because like it's not good. It's just that the poem doesn't fit with all the other poems, you know what I mean? So a lot of the rejections is not it's not because your poem's rubbish, but I think we need that validation of somebody else, like in the beginning, I just wanted people to tell me they liked please tell me you loved my poem, and I needed that validation from other people because I didn't have the ability to be objective about my own work, and I still don't sometimes if I'm too close to it. So like, forget about it. Leave that poem it's doing your nut in. I mean, I've had poems, I think the one that I've had the most versions of, I was on version 83. And I'm still not happy with it. I've had it published, it's in my collection, and I am still not happy with it. But it was just really important to me that that poem was right, and it was just never felt right. But I ended up putting it in anyway because I was on a deadline. There's nothing like a deadline to spur you on with things. But yeah, that I leave it, forget about it for at least a couple of months, maybe longer. And then once you've got that emotional attachment away from the piece, that you can then pick it up and you think, oh my God. And there's things that are really obvious that kind of jump out at me. But again, also getting feedback from people you trust that isn't your mom that's going to go, what's up a good? Because it's not. But yeah.
Fantastic. Well, tenacity and getting stuck in and being determined appears to be the theme. So we're in for a right good year. And Catherine, I was grinning like an idiot when you spoke about not showing it to your partner or your husband or your wife or somebody, because my man's turned into a world-class sprinter anytime I come in the corner of a poet with the book in my hand. So, Joe, could I ask you to read us out the room, and then Catherine to follow, and then we'll say our thanks and our Cheerios. Thank you very much for tonight, folks. Thank you for joining our conversation. Here's Joe and Catherine just to finish things off for us.
Okay, so I'm going to read this poem, and this is a new one. I'm still tinkering with it, but this is the current version. Matriarchy. Fa are you to dictate to our bodies, our lives, policing our moves, we shouldna say yes, or nae where at our age. It's a man's world, aye. Nae doing we out of but it's nae a wifey's either. Our future lies in the hands o' a victory o' kindness and empathy. Indeed, the rare opportunity, quines, trans and non-binary folk wipe the fleer with ony male efforts in most things. Ladies' Bridge in London, built mainly by wifeys during World War II, came in afore time and on our budget. Records of their names conveniently lost, except the man who designed it, of course. Wendy Carlos, trans woman, trailblazer, triple Grammy winner, wheel ahead o'er time. helped Mark the Moog, composed cult classics, film scores for Kubrick and the like. Or tak Jasmine Paris, ultra runner, fahacked 12 hours off the record of the Montaigne Spine race, whilst also pumping breast milk for our 14-month-old Baron. The previous record was held by some man. A sma selection of superstars would be here a day to mention them a. Yet nae single country oota our 190, which includes Palestine, by the way, has achieved full gender equality. Fusty, prune-couping gapes where I been a berry bappet beaks and haunted een, telling us, fit to dee, you canna DS, you canna hiat. I will fucking can. Watch us.
Fantastic. Catherine, I've not gave you the fear. You managed to find something to read for us that's maybe shortened a wee bit. Thank you very much, Jo. It's so inspiring. Thank you. Catherine, thank you.
This is The Train to Anywhere But Here, which came second in Flash 500 probably about 3 or 4 years ago. I'm taking the train to the moon, the bottom of the ocean, the top of Everest. And Sam says, no, you're not, because trains don't do that. They stay on track, join to land. But I tell him, what do you know? You're just a baby who still needs a teddy at night. And we both pretend that I don't, as he leaves the room so I can carry on building my cardboard carriages. And when it's finished, I sit in the front, being the driver, and I drive that train with its clickety-clackety motion and its shrill, piercing whistle, and its engine that eats mouthfuls of coal and belches out columns of sooty smoke. And there I stay all day, pretending not to hear Mum's call to tidy it up, and not even flinching when Dad arrives home and stares at me sitting there, giving the boxes a thumping kick as he walks past on the way to the kitchen. And when I hear the raised voices and the tension simmering in the air and the smash of a plate on the floor, I keep on steering my train and don't even mind when Sam climbs in behind me, his bear tucked under one arm. And we let the chug, chug, chug of the locomotive drive us to Lapland, to glide over glaciers and snake around snowbanks. And we wave to Santa and throw carrots out the window to his reindeer. And then we travel south to that beach in Spain where everything had been sand and smiles and sunshine. Then we speed across the ocean to a jungle where monkeys hang by their tails from trees and tropical flowers bloom like bright umbrellas. And that's where we stop, disembark and hide under leaves as large as shields. And all we can hear is the drip, drip, plop of water from rain showers, and the buzzing insects the size of your hand, and the squawk of birds who fly overhead with wings like rainbows. And when Sam says, can we do this again tomorrow? I tell him, yes, of course we can, even though I know that most likely, when we wake in the morning, our cardboard train will be in a bonfire at the bottom of the garden, belching out a column of sooty smoke.
Thank you so much. Can I just thank the two of you? It's been an absolute pleasure pulling all this together this week with you, and the last hour has just been brilliant. And you probably haven't had time to look at what's coming up through the chat, but so many comments on thanking you. It's been wonderful. It's been interesting, so insightful, fantastic energy. They're all looking forward to seeing what you bring to the Fed this year. Loving listening to your journeys, and that's, you know, that's why I specifically wanted to talk tonight about how your creativity works, where you've come from, where you're going to, because that's the thing that scares everybody when they start writing, is how might I do more? And organisations like the Fed are where folk come to find their tribe, as somebody said earlier. So absolutely delighted to have done this tonight with you. It's been a real joy. For those of you that are online, we have got a Burns Breaking Bread with Rabbi event on the 20... looking at the socials, I think it's about the 22nd, the 23rd it's on. And then we've got an event early in February as well for our Love of Words, just a few days before Valentine's Day. But thank you so much for your time tonight, folks. It's been absolutely brilliant. We are the Fed. Keep coming back to us because it's all going to be good. Take care. See you later. Bye-bye.
That was amazing. Loved it. Thank you so much.
Fine to see you, Jennifer.
I'll buzz off now because Dave wants to watch the telly and it's too cold to go somewhere else in the room.
Take care, darling. Thank you, Jennifer. Good night. That's superb, ladies. Thank you very, very much. I'm going to stop the recording at that so we can have a quick chat relating to what we're going to be doing next, okay? So just stop the recording, pretend I can like what I'm doing. You should want to stop recording the cloud.